off there.
Yeah. Is that enough? No.
Yeah, that's
Too close.
a little bit further back. That should be good. Perfect.
So here's your headset over here. Alright, so I'll put us in... Was it what, Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Okay, so put us in Los Angeles. Okay, I'll just show you what we do. So LA. So we're going to do it IFR. Let's do it at night. So it will actually give a very good IMC style condition.
Love it.
Okay, so we go to North South America. LA would be LAX. If I can find where it is, there it is. And position at gate. Alright. So what happens now is the plane currently is actually running and it's fully alive. Just done a landing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly put the plane back into just reset it. Flaps won't behave. The flaps are not really behaving today. So we're actually going to use the alternate flap system.
Okay.
Yep. So in a real airline, it's quite common to get dispatched with an airplane that doesn't really work very well. Items have failed. So we have something called the MEL, the minimum equipment list, which is what we call the go, no-go items. So even if systems fail, you could still operate passenger flights for a certain amount of days. So, yeah, the flaps being a bit wonky today.
See the...
Yeah, so I'm at flap 0, and the plane is still. So I'm just going to quickly shut the airplane down once I get the flaps up. Okay, so we'll let the flaps come up. Okay, so this is LAX. So I'm not very sure on the airport layout, so I'll let you do it.
Not sure. Do you know which gate we're at?
Not really actually. It doesn't say on this sim, but normally when you push back a bit, it'll give you a number on the top of the jet bridge.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll let the flaps come up, then I could shut the engines down and then we'll... So Los Angeles to San Diego, how long a flight is that?
Los Angeles to San Diego, that's pretty quick. So you're gonna, I'd say that's probably 15-20 minutes.
Perfect, so the top of climb will pretty much be top of descent. Alright. Might actually be I have a hydraulic system fault. Let's see. So the flaps don't normally run this slow, so it's probably because I lost... Not all my hydraulics are working. Okay, so we got the hydraulics. Okay, so I'm going to shut everything down. Okay, so I'll just start the clock once we are ready. And okay, so this is what happens. You and I work for a shitty airline, probably Southwest or something. So we get in. Let me just see if it's recording. Yep, we got into the plane. This is what you see as the first flight of the day. This is what we call cold and dark. So the first thing we do is, just like in the car, when you put the key in the ignition and turn it one click to the right, you get some very basic stuff like the lights, maybe the the brake lights, the cabin lights, but that's about it. So I'll show you what that does. So this is the battery. By pushing this in, you get some rudimentary amount of power. So I'll just get you to push it in. Yep, you'll just push the rocker switch in. Suddenly, some of the more important functions of the airplane come to life. So imagine we lost all our AC power. If you run on the backup battery, you get your autopilot panel, you get the ISIS, which is the integrated standby instrument system, and you get the green lights on the gear lights. That's about it. So that's pretty much all the power you get in some other very basic systems. So what we're going to do now is, we need AC power to sustain the airplane. So we have the APU in the tail, which is a jet engine that provides air and power, electrical power. So we need to start it. So push it to the start system, and you'll see the exhaust gas temperature of the APU, which is that little exhaust nozzle in the tail, starts to go up. When it gets to a certain speed, it's self-sustaining, and you'll see this come on saying that it will give us power if we want to. So on the Boeing, the circuits are divided to the left side of the plane and the right side. So we're going to activate power to the left. So pull and down. So now you can see left side of the airplane is powered. Now we pull in down for the right side. So now the plane is getting its own AC power. So you could get it from the tail, or you could get a guy to connect the ground card. But I don't want to do that. Okay, so now that we got basic power, we can start getting the plane to life. First thing we do is we align the IRS. So turn this to navigation mode, and this one as well. So the IRS is actually a guidance system that runs off a very rudimental gyroscope. So as the gyroscope spins, it will stay erect. The minute the plane starts to move, it's going to sway. So really smart boffins in the lab managed to calculate how much sway equates to how much we've moved, and that's what the IRS does, and it's a very accurate guidance system. So we're going to come down here, and on the Boeing we do the scans like this. So up, down, up, down, up, down. So the first thing we do is we don't need anything here, but yes, we need to turn on the yaw damper. So put that to on, and that prevents the plane from doing this in flight. We call it starts to fishtail. So when that is done, we'll come down. Nothing here that needs to be adjusted. The systems all look good. We don't need to adjust brightness or change sources or anything. Next, we turn all fuel pumps on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Oh, so you got pull and lower. So they make it this way in a Boeing to prevent pilots from knocking stuff. Okay, so this side is done. Let's go from here down. Electrical power looks good. The cabin will need coffee and tea and biscuits, so we turn the galley on. And the reason why we actually allowed to shed power to the galley from the cockpit, if we lose an engine, we lose an electric system, and we need to conserve energy, the galley uses a lot of power because of all the ovens. Anything that generates heat from an electrical source will drain the most amount of power, so it's better to stay alive than to have hot food. So the minute something goes wrong, I would just turn the galley power off. Coming down, this is the generators. The engines are not running, so we don't need generators. Everything else is not important. Very important for our airline as well, in my company or in any airline. Make sure the wipers are off before you turn anything on, because these wipers are so strong that if there's no water on the screen and you turn them on, they're just going to sandblast the windscreen and damage this and this. Okay, so now coming back up here, we need to turn the window heat on. So 1, 2, skip this, 3, 4. These need to come on. And the reason why you need the window heat is they actually provide the strength to the windscreen. People think it's because of misting and frosting. It's not. It's actually because when these are cold, they become brittle. Anything hits them, they shatter. If they're warm, they sustain their strength. So it's a bit like Terminator when the guy got touched by the liquid nitrogen. You just tap him and he shatters. So that's why we have this window heating. We'll turn the probe heats on as well. So just turn them to the on position. And the reason why we do it is these probes are actually tiny little holes and nozzles. You turn them on, the heat actually, if there's bugs in there, it gets hot, they can freak out, they come out. So it doesn't block the pitot-static tube. It also prevents it from freezing in colder countries. Alright, so we'll come down here. Anti-ice, not required. Hydraulic pumps. Before you turn them on, you always got to press the ground call button and say something like cockpit to ground, then the mechanic will be, yes, go ahead. Permission to pressurize hydraulics, because your hydraulics run at 3000 psi. So when they're not running, your ailerons, everything, they sag. So there might be an engineer in there, you know, tinkering around. You turn this on now, boom.
That's typically why you see the.
You see, yeah,
back to, right?
either to the right, to the left, or it's not really the right or left. That's because of what the pilot, you know, was doing in the cockpit. For the saggy, for this it's more ailerons and elevator. They follow gravity. Okay, so I'll get you turn these 4 on. So coming down, nothing else is needed. Trim air. So we'll turn this on. So that's the thing that prevents the air from leaving the airplane so fast, keeps us pressurized. Circulation fan, we'll turn it to auto, and auto for left and right. So we want to make sure the passengers are happy. We'll leave the air conditioning packs off because we need to keep the air conditioning off to start the engines. Coming down, okay, airplane is ready. Let's program a flight plan now. So we'll go, and on FSX, I don't know if the FMC is pretty good
It's not even
working.
basically when you program your flight. It's kind of the FMC. You can get add-ons that have FMC.
Yeah.
For the default 737-800, they don't have it.
Okay, so I'll show you how it works. It's basically like opening a book. We love this thing because this is the reason why every flight engineer lost his job now. This does everything for us. So we always start off with the index page, and it's just like a book. You start from the start of the book and you work your way back. So we'll start off with ident. So this is what happens now. We always check this. Are we in the right airplane? Because you have the 737, 800, 700, 600, 900, NG, everything, Neo. So you got to make sure you're in the right model because different models behave differently. So if that's correct, we look at the engines. CFM 56 7B. It's especially important on the Airbus because we have the CFM and another brand called IAE. Different engines, different setting and parameters. And the navigation database. We need to, by law, make sure it's updated every 28 days. If it's not, someone could have built a tower at the end of the runway up to 300 feet because there's no law to it, and we could have crashed into it. So if that looks okay, we go to position initialization. So we want to align the IRS now. So we just press that and it should give us LAX. So let's see, LAX is not North 22 if I'm not wrong, so press that, it might change. Yes, so North 33 is more like it. So this runs off latitude and longitude. It's a grid reference for the whole world. So that's done, that's correct. The plane now knows where it is. We'll go to route. So we're taking off from LAX, so put in LAX. And we're going to take off on the runway. So we're not going to waste our time taxiing. I'll just fast forward us to a runway. So San Diego is 2 hours south if I'm not wrong. So let's choose a runway that's facing south. So 25 would be good. Yeah. So now we know we're going to take off facing the south and actually put us towards San Diego. Do you know the code for San Diego? Is it KS? If not, I could just check it out.
No idea.
Okay, I'll just quickly take a look. San Diego's code is KSAN. So type in KSAN. Oh, sorry, we need to put K. So I'll just delete that. KSAN. SANN. We'll put it as our destination, and we just put a random runway in. Normally this is what we do in my company because we don't know where we're going to land at, and just maybe 27. Activate it. So when the green light comes on, the plane will perform all the calculations and execute it. So just press execute. So now the plane knows that's our flight plan route. So let's go and do, so now the plane knows how it's getting to San Diego. Now let's do the performance initialization. We need to tell the plane how heavy we are. So I know our zero fuel weight. Everything on our weight on our plane without passengers on board weighs 54,000 kilograms. So type in 54 and put it as our zero fuel weight. So 54 plus 7.3 gives us 61.3. So we know that right now the plane with all the fuel weighs 61,000 kilograms. And it will keep changing because as we burn fuel, the plane gets lighter and lighter. Next, reserves. We need to land in our airport with at least 2,000 kilograms. So type in 2 and put it up here. And cost index, put in 35. So what happens is, if I put the cost index as 0, we'll fly at minimum drag speed. We'll get there really slowly. If we put 999, we get there like a bat out of hell. We'll fly at almost close to VNE. We never exceed speed. Okay, cruising flight level. So San Diego's quite close by. It's telling us our optimum flight level is 11,000 feet. So let's fly at 12,000. There's 3 zeros behind it. And put it as our cruising flight level. And now you see if the green light comes on, we can execute because we've got enough performance factors. And let's go to N1 limit. So it's telling me now that if we take off from LAX with the current temperature at 15 degrees, we could use 98%. That's our max takeoff power. So it's a bit like when you're in a cold country, if you're in, Minnesota or something, the engine, it's cold. You could probably run faster before getting tired. Let's say I decided to go down to maybe Phoenix in Arizona where the temperature probably got up to 45 degrees. And let's see how the plane, so you see the thrust setting reduces. So what we do is to save money, we actually know that there's a point where we could just lie to the engine that is 50 plus degrees outside, use less thrust for takeoff, thus saving us money. So we use all the runway, gradually speed up instead, and use less thrust. So I think about 56 degrees is good. So type in 56, and this is what we call ASAT, assumed temperature takeoff, or in Airbus we call it flex. So now we'll use 95% to take off. So we'll go to takeoff now. The takeoff will be done in flaps 5. So just type in 5. There. CG is about 25. So that's the center of gravity. So the trim will be set to 5.3 prior to takeoff. And now you could see we've got speeds calculated for us. So you need to highlight them one by one. So press, 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 and it will come out on our speed tape. So you're familiar with V1. So V1 is the speed at which, no matter what, take off. Because you're not going to stop by the end of the runway. Better climb out into the air, sort it out, come back in for an emergency landing. VR is the speed at which we have enough power to pull back and the nose should rise and get off the ground. V2 is what we call the safety speed. It's the speed at which, if we have an engine seizure, failure, fire, where the one engine doesn't provide thrust, the plane will safely fly at this speed, because anything slower, the rudder will not be able to compensate enough and the plane will just go into roll and crash. Alright, so that's actually what the pilots do before takeoff. That's our safety briefing. So now that that's done, we will get on the radio. So I'll just show you what the radio will sound like. So we'll go to ATC. So the first radio will be what we call the radio check. So
Flight experience 556
so we get a radio check, so we know our radios work. So now in real life, this guy in a yellow vest will come in and, hey senor, your plane is fully loaded, So he'll say that. He'll give you a final load sheet. We'll check that the weights do tally, because suddenly sometimes the guy thought it would be a good idea, oh, I'm putting another 1,000 kilograms of cargo on board. So we always check towards the end. So if that's good, we get our airways clearance. So we'll say LAX clearance delivery, Southwest 556, IFR to San Diego, parked at Delta 15, request airways clearance. Then he will come back and give us our flight plan. But it won't sound like this, it'll be very long. So let's see.
Experience
Yep.
556, cleared as filed. Delta is current, report ready for push and start clearance.
So we will say report ready, push and start. In real life, the airways clearance will be almost 2 minutes worth of Okay, so now that that's done, we're ready for push and start. Susie, the flight attendant, will come in. Captain, all passengers on board, permission to close and arm doors. Not arm doors, close doors. So they will close the doors. And now we'll request permission to push and start. So now we'll say LAX ground, Southwest 556, ready, push and start. And this is what they will probably reply. Busy today.
Flight experience 556, cleared for push and start, report ready for taxi.
So now that we're cleared for push and start, the first thing we do is we turn on that red beacon light. So you turn this quickly to on. And then now, release the parking brake. And I'm going to get you to press this and just say, I'll just say it for you. Cockpit to ground, cleared, push and start, face south. So the guy will the tow truck guy will push you back. And now, this is the part where we are ready to start the right hand engine. We always start right hand engine first, because on the left, you're close to the jet bridge. So you might, damage the jet bridge if you start it too soon. So I'll get you to start the engine. All you do is, we need air to spin the fan. So we need the air from the APU, so turn the APU on. So the air will come and follow this line, and it will go up here, but there's a valve, so it's closed. We need to open this valve. One more, it's in auto now. So now we know the air is being forced, but the engine 2 valve is closed, so we open the engine 2 valve. So you could see the air is freely going all the way into the engine. Now we are going to open the engine start valve. So push this until it goes into the ground and locks. Okay, so now that that's done, we'll look down. So there's 2 big fans in the engine. N2 is the fan towards the middle of the engine block. N1 is the first fan you see when you look at the engine from the front, that big thing that spins. It's starting to rotate. Put your hand here on number 2. When it gets to 20%, we're going to pull and lift. It's going to introduce the fuel into the engine. Pull and lift now. So, we went a bit too far.
Oops.
Nah, it's alright. We were just... Okay. So you see, the minute you put the fuel in, it starts to combust, and the engine is sustaining itself. When the engines are stabilized, I always see it as 2, 4, 6 stable. We could go ahead and start 1. So because we're going to start 1, we'll close the valve because we don't need it anymore. And you just on number 1, and the air is all going into number 1. We'll start number 1 the same way. And we'll wait for the valve to open. So I'm going to show you, see, it spins faster. The big fan spins slower because it goes through a reduction gearbox. When it gets to 20%, introduce the fuel. Okay, so you see, the exhaust gas temperature starts to, the fuel starts to burn, the exhaust gets really hot, the fan starts to spin up, and at 55, you heard that tuck sound, it automatically closed the valve in the engine, so it doesn't let the air go back out. So after we've started the engines, we need to start setting up the after start scan. So we need air conditioning now, so turn these both to auto. 1, 2. So we may need to let the isolation valve work automatically, so this will go to auto as well. The APU is useless now, so we turn it off. And now since the engines are running, it could provide electrical power, so pull and lower, pull and lower. And to save money in my airline, we actually shut off the APU. Now we'll leave it on. We'll just leave it on for fun. So now that that's done, we'll get our clearance. So we'll tell ground, push and start complete. Thank you, bye bye. Hand signal on the left. So the guy really has to walk away to the left side of the plane, hold up the gear pin, otherwise we could taxi and the plane will not steer. Because when he's towing us, he needs to go left and right, so he puts a pin into the nose wheel and that disconnects our steering. When he walks away, he needs to show us that pin. Otherwise, if I taxi now, we're going to hit that terminal if we don't, because we can't steer. So now that we have cleared, we can get our taxi lights on because we need it to steer. And one more. So now we have lights and we'll say LX ground cleared to taxi. Request taxi. So the guy will be
experience 556, taxi to hold short of the active runway.
So we'll taxi a little bit and then I'll fast forward us to the active runway. So the taxi, all you do is push the parking brake, use the tiller, apply a bit of thrust, and let the plane start to move. So we'll follow the yellow line. Okay, it's Virgin America. So, have you heard the famous saying for taxiing at night? Between the blues, on the greens, stop at the reds. So when you see blue lights, stay between them. Follow the green lights in between the greens, and stop at the reds. Okay, so you're familiar with with how a plane taxis on the ground, the tiller?
Yep.
So let's just fast forward to the runway. And I'm just going to put us on Los Angeles.
Okay, taxied onto the runway.
Okay, we're on the runway. So we'll stop here now.
Okay.
Put the parking brake on. So we're on the runway. So before we take off, when we get onto an active runway, we always have to turn the strobe lights on. That's another law of the air. So I'll get you to turn the strobe light on. It's that white light that goes ta 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 ta. When we're cleared for takeoff, before we take off, 1, 2, 3, 4 comes on. The landing lights always come on with the takeoff clearance. So let's get our takeoff clearance now. So normally you'll say something like Southwest 556 ready, and there will be winds calm, climb. So I'll get you just also turn the heading to our current heading, which is 252.
Experience 556, line up.
So it gives us a very good because normally we climb on runway heading and then do our departure from there. Okay, so we've lined up.
We want to set any of the...
Now we'll leave the speed for now, and I'll show you why later. So what I'll get you to do is arm the auto thrust. You'll see armed on your screen. So clear for takeoff 556. The first thing you do is release the parking brake, and you announce to me takeoff. all 4 lights will come on, and we'll do an all flex thrust takeoff. So press that black button and release it. Okay, so now we just maintain the center line, and I'll give you the callouts like I do in my airline with my captains. So now you could just use the rudder pedals. Yep.
Oops.
So right pedal. So
I can't reach it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure where they about.
alright, I'll just pause it. Okay, so lift your leg back and up it.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
So we actually use the rudder pedals because they actually steer the nose wheel as well, but only 7 degrees left, 7 degrees right, which is more than enough for staying on the runway. Here we go. Okay, airspeed is alive. The next call out I'll give is at 100 knots, and I'll say 100 knots. So you check your instrument, I'll check mine, make sure they're reading correctly. Okay. V1, rotate, so bring the force back towards you. Aim for 15 degrees now. Lower, about there. Awesome. Positive rate of climb, landing gear up. So pull and lift. Okay, so if you look at your speed tape now, do you see we passed the word 5?
Yeah.
That means, 1 now. So it means we could go flaps 1 now. So reach over and pull and 1. Okay, flaps are now in 2. So, and when you're ready, we can go flaps up now. Okay, so you are currently climbing through 2,000 feet. Our initial climb will be to 3,000. Most of the times, airports always get us to climb to 3,000 first. And when you're ready, you could go from max our takeoff speed to speed mode and bring the speed back to 250. There's a rule in the air that below 10,000 feet our speed limit will always be 250 knots unless otherwise stated. Okay, so now you could see we can turn left and start following our flight plan route. So they will normally say Southwest 556, you are cleared to resume own navigation, track direct, flight plan route. So you say back, and then now we could actually just turn this heading all the way to intercept that line. And the reason why we normally stay at 3,000 feet when we're near the airport is, above the airport it's normally waypoints. So if we climb, we may hit the planes that are using the airport as an airway route. So now you are cleared to climb to flight plan route, so that's 12,000 feet. Spin it up to 12,000. And you can activate your autopilot now. So the left panel, and press level change. So on the Boeing and the Airbus, it will never allow you to change the the plane will always, when you activate the autopilot, it will never change the altitude unless you activate level change. That's because when we give the authority to the autopilot, we're kind of distracted with other stuff. So they're worried that if I press this button and I start doing other stuff, what happens if I left this at 100 feet? The plane will descend and you're probably not paying attention, you know? Okay, so now when you're climbing through, the next thing we do is when we get to 10,000 feet, the captain and the co-pilot will do something called the SLAP-C checks. So SLAP is S-L-A-P-C. It is a bunch of checks we do as we climb up through 10,000 feet. So we're going to just wait till we get to 10,000, or we could actually do it early. So S stands for seatbelt signs. We will turn the seatbelt signs off now.
They're already off.
Okay. Oh, we gotta leave the smoking signs on though. Nowadays, unless you're flying in China, they'll let you smoke in the plane. Okay, L, 10,000 feet, landing lights come off. A, APU, we can turn the APU off above 10,000 feet. P, we will check our pressurization, so we always check whether the cabin pressure is safe. So we're looking for about 8,000 feet cabin pressure, which it'll probably be, you know. C would be cabin. Is the cabin okay? Give an announcement. If that's fine, we're safe. So what happens is, in America, I'm not sure about something, but have you heard of something called the transition altitude? Okay, so in aviation, below a certain height, normally it's the highest terrain in the country, we follow something called altitude, which is 9,000 feet. Above what we call the transition, we follow something called a flight level. So you'll be at flight level 900, flight level 90, or if you're cruising at 35,000 feet, you'll be at flight level 350.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So what we do is, we press this button and see what happens to here. So press this button. So it's gone into standard. So it's actually using the air pressure set at 1013 hectopascals, or in America 2992 inches of mercury. So we always check, see the instruments are correct, so we know our altitude is there. Okay, so now let's get back to our flight plan route. So I need you to turn this to it intercepts our flight plan. Okay, so now we're tracking towards our flight plan route. The next thing we got to do is, why waste our energy worrying about constantly changing the heading? So since the plane is already going to intercept our flight plan, just press lateral navigation, and what happens is, the minute the plane gets across this line, it will intercept the flight plan and fly it itself. And now that we're at our cruising flight level, we got to start worrying about flying the... Wait, it's not doing it. So go back to hitting select. Yep. So and just leave it for now. It might need about 7 miles before it intercepts. So what we're going to do now is, you got to prepare for the descent. This is very hard in small airplanes that fly regional, because the minute you take off, you got to worry about landing already. So first thing we got to do is, we're at 12,000 feet. So we need to think about how far ahead from San Diego we got to start descent. And this is how I normally do it. What is 12 times 3? 36. So we know we need to start descending the airplane. So I normally do 10 miles ahead. So 36 plus 10. By the time we get to 46 miles from the airport, we got to start leaving our flight level and coming back down. And I'll show you how we'll do that. Go to Fix. Type in KSAN. Put it as our fix. And it's telling me that San Diego is 84 miles away. So that gives us a bit of time of 40 miles. So what we could do is, we will fast forward it, so we won't waste time in the cruise to about 50 miles, because when we get to 50 miles, that's when things start to liven up. So I'm just going to fast forward us really quick. And let me just see if I could get the LNAV back. So I'm just using a bit of time compression. Alright, perfect. Go to fixed page. So 74 miles. So when it gets down to about 50, we're going to start doing something called the top of descent preparation. And I'll just get the item out. So we'll need to start using the normal checklist items. So we're about 60 miles now. So another 10 miles to go, and then I'll put the timer back. Okay. So at this point, you know, you will normally do the captain will normally do like, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck. This is your captain speaking." You'll say something like, "We're about to start our descent into San Diego, blah blah blah." So we normally get out of the way so we could start preparing the plane to land. So what I'll get you to do now is, we'll go, and because we're coming into land, we need to start thinking of our approach into San Diego. So go into approach. So let's see, San Diego's runway KSAN 27, which is runway 27, has no ILS. Let's try and practice an ILS. So go to index, go to ident, go forward a few pages, next page. We're going to switch the runway to 09. There should be an ILS on one of the runways. So runway, select, press 09, and now let's go to index page, approach, Perfect, we have an ILS, so we could tune the ILS now. So 111.55, that's the ILS frequency. And you come down here, this is our navigation radio. So the big knob will adjust the whole numbers, the small knob adjusts the decimal numbers. So we need to put it as 11155. Oh, 55, sorry. Okay, so we'll transfer it to make it active. And now we'll see if the frequency comes up. It won't come up. It normally works from about 25 miles from the airport, so we'll get that at about 25 miles. Next is telling me we need to set up a course of 092. This is the magnetic heading of the runway, so let's put it on your side and my side, and we'll cross-check. So that looks okay. So our ILS is tuned, so the plane is ready to land, but first we'll need to do the top of descent prep. So we'll need to do the descent preparation before we leave our flight level. So the first thing we'll do is, when you're ready, first we press recall. So press that. If all the lights light up, it means all our systems are working. Yep, press that. Okay, so we have a master caution. Let's see what's it about. It's because we have no fuel in the center tank anymore, so we will turn these off. Okay, so see the lights gone out? We're okay. Next is telling us auto brake. So when we land in San Diego, let's see how long is the runway in San Diego. The runway distance is 9,400 feet. That equates to about, divided by 3, that's about 2,000 meters. It's more than enough, so we'll set the runway auto brake to about 2. Next is telling us landing data, VREF and minimums. So we know the minimum San Diego is probably above sea level. I'm not too sure high, so we'll just ignore it.
Yeah, the runway, it's at sea level.
If it's at sea level, perfect. So we'll just set our minimums. Let's see if I can. Do you see the word, your barrel here?
Yeah.
Set it to 200 feet. So we know that we'll come down to about 200 feet. If we don't see the runway, we'll go around. Okay. 200 feet. So the plane will go down 200 feet. It will say minimums. If we don't see the runway, go around. Okay. So landing data is done. Approach briefing, we will take it as complete. So normally they will do something called the chart brief, you know, or we're doing the, let me see if I've got a chart. There we go. Or we're doing an ILS into this runway. We'll come in from here. So this is the chart brief. So in my airline, we practice the chart brief as what we call C2+, CTWO+. So C stands for the chart brief. The T stands for high terrain. So tell the captain where's all the high terrain. So we'll use this. W, weather. What's the weather like in San Diego? O, operational requirements. Do we need to do anything when we land? Are we doing, will there be our own airline people there on the ground to, give us external power? Do we need to shut off the APU? Plus stands for anything else. For example, now after 911, we have security threat management. So for example, Asia is pretty dangerous, some airports. So we say, Bangkok is a red port, be careful. Singapore is amber. Any other things would be, this will be a auto land, because the plane every 28 days we do an auto land to test the systems. So this will be an auto land, blah blah blah. What else will we normally brief on? Will we be doing a single engine taxi? So a lot of small airplanes, we like to shut down one engine after we land, so we'll just brief it all now. So if that's done, we could safely say we are already at our top of descent. So let's leave our flight level now and head down to, so we'll leave our flight level, so turn this to 3000. Press level change. And normally this is the point where when we'll tell ATC, San Diego Center, Southwest 556, leaving flight level 120. Then they'll say, okay Roger, turn right heading 160. So what the guy is doing now is he knows we're leaving our flight level to cruise, we're starting the approach. So what the guy is doing now is he's vectoring us, radar vectoring us for the approach. And what we'll do is I'll get you to press this because we're not really concerned about what's behind us now. Do you see this line? That is the start of the approach. This is probably the initial approach fix. and we'll just follow that. So if you zoom out of it, you could see that's your runway. This is about a 15-mile line sticking out the runway. Okay. So what we get you to do now is we'll leave the fixed page on. It's telling us we're about 27 miles. When we get to 25, we should start to get an ILS signal. So in older airplanes, we do something called the TIST test. We tune the radio, we identify it. So you know on FSX you hear when you tune some frequency, you hear it's actually a voice code giving us telling us we are tuned into the right radio station. On certain planes, because you have NDB approach, ILS, VOR, we need to select the radio 8 we're using. So you could actually see, you could do raw data, so that's all the different radio 8s you could use. Okay, so last we got to test the signal. So what we normally do is, to see if the plane signal is working, which you probably won't, we will turn the 8 and see whether the CDI needle moves left and right. So we'll get it when we get closer. But on a modern airplane, you don't need to do it. It's only for older airplanes, the classics. Right, so now that that's done, you could see we're descending through 10,000 feet. We have to do the slap C checks again. So step 1, seatbelt signs, we'll turn it back on. Landing lights, we'll turn back on as well. APU, let's turn the APU back on again. And we have to start it. P, the pressurization, we gotta make sure the plane is starting to go into a vertical, we're starting to lose the airspeed, the cabin pressure. And C, anything else in the cabin, so that looks okay. So we still haven't gotten a signal, so we'll wait a little bit more. But what I'll get you to do now is we're going to go back and use altitude again, so we're not going to transition. So I'm going to press that, and you should see 1013 hectopascals. Okay, so now we got to learn how to intercept the ILS approach. So what I'll get you to do now is, our runway heading is 90 degrees, correct? So let me see if I can get it. So the runway heading is 90 degrees, right? So we always intercept the runway from about 30 degrees off. So 90 plus 30 is? So 9 plus 3.
12.
So we will turn the heading now to 120. So most of the time the radar, the controller will vector us, but sometimes they'll say make a pilot intercept for the approach. So now when we're about there, but give me a second, something's a bit suspicious because we still have not gotten our, so 111.55. 55, 111.55. We have not gotten our signal yet for the runway, which is a bit suspicious because we are 15 miles away from the airport. Okay, so now you could see, if I zoom in for you, the runway is over there. We did not get a ILS yet, and I'm wondering why. So at 9, okay. No, it won't. If you put approach, it won't come on because you need the signal, and I think I know why. Oh. Okay, so we have to do it raw data now. So what I'll get you to do now is, we're going to have to intercept the runway. So turn the plane right, and we're going to come back in from the start.
So right to what heading?
Right to a heading of, let's see, 270. Alright, perfect. So we'll fly this landing what we call as a visual approach or non-precision approach, and I'll show you all the calculations we do. The next landing, yeah, we still got a bit of time. We'll do one ILS approach in heavy rain in a thunderstorm at night in Sydney, and you'll see how to follow the ILS. Alright, I'm still curious why we're not getting the signal though. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, you could see we're actually descending really slowly. So the best way to increase our rate of descent is to start configuring the airplane. So I'll get you to reduce the speed now to 220. And check our airspeed. So we're below 250 knots. We could go flaps 1 now. And turn further right hitting 300. Okay, so now we go flaps 5. So what happens is, a lot of times flying to places like Bali for me, you get this scenario where we're supposed to be at 3,000 feet now, but the relatively incompetent... Continue approach report finals. The relatively incompetent air traffic controller would vector you so that you're 6,000 feet when you should be at 3,000. So this is how we're going to lose height fast. Bring the gear down now. So with the gear down, you get drag. When you get dragged, the plane slows down and we lose height fast. And so we just watch your rate of descent. See, it's going from 600 now, it's going to 1,000, which is perfect. Okay, so now we're going to do the 5 steps after the gear comes down. Step 1, auto brake, set. Step 2, seatbelt signs, on, check. Step 3, all the lights attached to the wheels will come on now. Let me just check. Alright. Something very weird just happened. There we go. Okay, so now, where was I? Step 3. So step 4, we gotta arm the speed brake for landing. So pull this up, back about 1 inch, and then drop it down. Okay, so it arms, and when we touch down, it's going to open the spoilers for us and keep us on the ground. Step 5, not really necessary in the sim, but I'll press the PA and just say cabin crew to your landing stations, so they prepare the cabin. Alright, next we're going to turn right for a runway intercept, so turn right now to a heading off about 060. Still no ILS, it's okay. So what I'm going to get you to do is, we're going to do a non-precision approach. So when you're landing a plane on a runway, an airliner does a 3-degree glide slope, and I'll show you how we get 3 degrees. So first things first, the runway is 21 miles away, so we don't need to do anything yet. So what we normally do is, on an airliner, we descend at 300 feet per nautical mile. So right now, we're going to stay at 3,000 feet. So what's 10 times 300?
300 is 3,000.
So when we get to 10 miles, we will start descent. So for every mile we get closer to the airport, we'll lose 300 feet. And the best way I do it is, I'll show you later when we get 10 miles, we'll descend according to our ground speed. So when you're ready, we're going to align ourselves to the runway. So turn us to our runway heading, which is 092 now. Okay, so now we're going to start reducing speed even more. We'll go to 180 knots. And when you're ready, flaps 15. Okay, so now that we got the flaps to 15, we'll wait for the flaps to come to the 15-degree mark. If they're moving. Let me just use the alternate flap system. Okay, so now we'll just monitor our plane. There we go, flaps 5. Okay, so we're about 17 miles now, so we need to start getting the plane really ready for landing. So we're going to go flaps 15 now, which it already is. So ideally, this is how we do it in the airline. From 15 miles to 10 miles, we should be getting ready, fully configured. From 10 miles, we concentrate on going down the glide slope. Okay, so at 15, we got flaps at 15, everything looks good. So I'm going to quickly run through what's going to happen when we get to 10 miles. 10 miles, we start to descend. We're going to descend according to our ground speed. So you see we're doing about 180 knots. So 180 divided by 2 gives us
9.
okay, so we know that our vertical speed should be 900. So I always remember the digits. When we divide this by 2, what's the first digit? And then we get our vert speed according to that. Okay, so let's see how far we are. We're 13 miles, so we'll keep going straight. You could see the airport straight ahead. And now we'll just say we are established on approach. So, San Diego Tower, Southwest 556, established ILS 09. Okay, 12 miles now.
Flight experience 556, clear to land.
Okay, clear to land 556. So you can see the runway is straight ahead with us. We're at 11 miles. So when you're ready, you could start by, let's set this to maybe 1,000 feet now. And now go and press vertical speed. Yep, press vert speed, VS, and put minus 900 now. Okay, so the next thing we worry about now is make sure the plane descends at 900 feet a minute. So it's gone to 1,000, so it would fine-tune itself in a little bit. Okay, and now we don't really need to do anything until we get to 2,000 feet. When we get to 2,000 feet, we'll go to our landing flap, which is flap 30, and we'll set the speed to our landing speed, which will be 30 degrees of flap, gives us a speed of 137. So we don't want to come in at 137, we want a little buffer, so 137 plus 5. So it'll be 142 will be our landing speed. Okay, so 300 feet to go. So what could you do now is reduce the speed now to 142 and bring the flaps to 30 degrees now. So do you see how speed will start to reduce, the ground speed? So it's 179. Let's see how low it goes when the speed finally levels, stabilizes. Okay, turn left about 2 degrees because we are slightly off up left about, so 090. A bit more, maybe 88. So do you see the runway slightly off to our left?
Yep.
Okay. So what you're going to do now is, okay, let's look at our ground speed one last time. It's saying we're doing 140 now. So 140 divided by 2.
70.
So we have to reduce our vertical speed now to minus 700. Okay. Alright, perfect. So now we'll quickly do the before landing checklist. Engine start switches, continuous, checked. Speed brake, it's armed. Landing gear, down, 3 greens, and flaps, 30 with the green light. So landing checklist is complete. When you're ready, we're going to disconnect and you're going to hand fly the plane. So both hands on the controls now. To disconnect, there's a few ways to disconnect. You can press this, push this, or just jerk the controls. The only way we're allowed to do in my airline is to press that. Okay, so now just keep the plane flying towards the runway and keep that 700 feet a minute descent. So you see we've actually leveled off, so push forward now and aim for 700 feet a minute. So the plane's going off slightly to the right, so we aim the plane left now. So the other way.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Now pull the nose slightly back up. Very nice. So left a bit more. 500 feet, stable. So push down even more now. Okay, So you're going to gently bring the nose up now. We're going to reduce our descent. So it's a bit like landing a duck on water. You don't want to slam the duck into the pond. You just want to come down to the water and then just kiss the ground. Okay, so left a bit. Yep, it's okay. It actually happens. So I'm going to get you to just drift the plane to the center and apply a bit of right rudder and push the plane down a little bit. Okay, now pull the nose up and hold it off the ground. Right hand on the thrust lever now and bring it the power back to idle. Hold the nose off the ground. Very nice. Now reverser. Okay. So now I'll just say spoilers, reverse, green, and decel. Okay, so now you just push down and up a bit. The reverser then... Okay, there we go. And keep the plane on the center of the runway, so left a bit more. Alright, so we're in San Diego. So now we're going to just turn off the runway here. And as you turn off, you bring the power down, the reverser down, and... So when you land at an international airport, the most important thing after landing is get off the runway. Because if anyone has to go around because you took your time to get off the runway, you will not be very popular in the airline. Okay, we'll turn off the runway, which we are now, and we'll stop here. So we get the parking brake up. So now the very important thing is, after you get off the runway, the most important thing you do is bring the flaps up as fast as you can. Flaps and spoilers, and there's a reason behind it. Down and up. Up, down and up. There we go. And the spoilers just pull and down. The reason why we bring the spoilers and the flaps up straight after landing is because if I taxi around San Diego airport or any airport with this fully extended, it's actually a code to all the other planes and all the other the people in the control tower that I've been hijacked. So I mean, for example, you know, if she's a hijacker, I can't be on, you know, speaking on my radio saying hijacker because I might get shot. So we actually leave the flaps out very quietly, and because there's no reason for them to be out before takeoff and landing. So if you're taxiing around the airport with your flaps out, it's something is wrong. And the controllers are actually trained. They won't say to you, Southwest 556, have you been hijacked? Because if we have the speakers on, the guy can hear. They'll say something like, you know, they'll say something very inconspicuous that a person that's not a pilot will not know. It's like, Southwest 556, you know, would you need any, you know, assistance for your arrival? Something they never ever say to us. So you'll be like, yes, I would love some assistance. It's a very, we're having some difficulties flying something, and they will know something is not right. Yep. Okay, so now that that's done, yep, you just landed. So let's take it as we'll come forward a little bit and treat it as us. I can't even see where the terminal is.
Yeah.
So let's turn the plane around. Alright. I think the terminal is at the other end. Alright, so what we do is we'll just stop here and treat it like this is the parking bay. So this is how we taxi into a bay. So we'll align ourselves with the green light. This is the parking spot. The first thing we do is we turn off all 7 lights. I'll turn it off for you, and the reason why we do that is because when you come into the gate, there's a marshaller. You do not want to blind him with the most powerful lights on earth. So when we get to the terminal, which is about... Actually, the terminal's just over there. Yep. So we get to about here. We'll just stop and park over there by that BizJet. So you can just go left. It's still on the tarmac. So we're not Southwest, we're just some rich tycoon's private jet. So turn left here. Sorry, I forgot that. We actually have a marshaller in front there with the FedEx van. So as we come in, get ready to step on the brakes. And we'll stop here. And parking brake on. And this is how you shut the engines down. Just pull and lower. The minute the engine stops supplying power, the electricity dies. And that's why when you see the engine shut down in the plane, you see the cabin lights turn off for a few seconds, because the pilots need time to reach over and pull the AP on. So I get you to do that. And now the power's back. Alright, great job. Now we do one more. So we'll go to what's that place? we'll go to Australia, and we'll go into Sydney. If I can find Sydney. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do an ILS in Sydney. So I'm going to do 16 right. So what happens now is my airline, we do a lot of flying to Australia because my airline is actually owned by the Australians. So Australia has some very adverse weather conditions. It's because they're at the bottom of the world, and they're surrounded by the Indian Ocean on the left and the Pacific Ocean on the right. So any country surrounded by a big ocean, you're going to get some really adverse weather. So Sydney, we get something called almost similar to a tropical monsoon. So this is what Sydney would look like on a clear day. So before we get going, I'm just going to quickly start the engines, and I'm going to just see if we could get the ILS in Sydney. So so 1095. There we go. So you saw now we've got the word IKS appeared. It means we have an ILS now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tune us in on the frequency. So you should know how to do it by now. So yours is already in. Just help me put the course 155 degrees. Oh no, 155 up here, sorry. Yeah, it's alright. Okay, so now we got the course set in. Could you help me set the heading? So it will be the same heading as this 155. And I'm actually going to move us onto a 10-mile final. So let me just change us to night. So we'll just switch the conditions to night. So what happens is it's very rare time, in fact almost never do I get a scenario where I could see the runway, I could see everything when I land. So this is what the airport looks like at night on a clear night. I'm going to put us on a 12-mile final. So this is a clear night. You could see all the stars in the sky. Let's just put us over the runway. Okay, so this is Sydney at night. That's the city over there. There's no clouds in the sky. That's the runway, 12 o'clock, 12 miles. Can you see it? So this is what we normally, this is very rare to see. You'll never ever see this scenario. We'll always be flying in IMC or instrument conditions. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up the plane before we go. So if you could, let me just see what it looks like at 5. So we'll leave at 10 miles so we have a good view. So you're going to see something on your screen now because we've tuned the ILS. Do you see these two diamonds here? One is giving us a left-right guidance, one gives us an up and down guidance. So you see, if this diamond goes to the left, it's telling us to turn left. If this diamond goes to the right, it's telling us we have to turn right. This diamond goes up, we pull up to reduce our rate of descent. And if this diamond goes down, we push the nose down to get back onto the slope. So this is a clear night. We are going to get the heavy thunderstorm that Sydney always gets. So I'm going to put us in that weather condition now. And it will be, oh god, why? It's known as, okay, so you could see this is what you normally see. It will be a thunderstorm. So when you're ready, I'm going to release you, and I'm just going to put the flaps in position, see if they go out. Okay, so when you're ready, I'm going to let you use the auto thrust, so you will not be, I won't be so cruel. We'll start flying the approach at 180, but you have to control the plane manually. Okay, so here we go. And here we go. Okay, so bring the nose slightly up. So keep the plane flying level. So pull. And hold the plane at about 5 degrees nose up now. Okay, keep it there. Perfect. So I'll give you the flight directives for. So do you see the flight director now?
Yeah.
It's telling us to fly left. So turn the flight directives left. And lower the nose.